New York Times writer Nicholas Kristof teamed up with his wife, Cheryl Wudon, to write a captivating book about giving back around the globe. The book, it is titled A Path Appears, Transforming Lives and Creating Opportunity. I spoke with Nicholas about the importance of charity and how everyone, no matter what their socioeconomic status, can play a part in helping others. Before I picked up the book, you look at ways to help out and you see the myriad of problems. And for people familiar with the columns that you write, they almost seem insurmountable or so large. You think that it's too big to approach, and you write in there that the best way to approach it or how to start is through empathy. Can you explain on how basically everybody watching right now, we have empathy to some degree or not, and that's probably the connective tissue to start the process?
Yeah, I think that there's, in a sense, a bit of an empathy gap in this country, and you see that in donations, that the wealthiest 20% of Americans donate less to charity as a percentage of income than the poorest 20% of incomes. And why would that be? I mean, it's not that the affluent are less empathetic intrinsically or less compassionate, less good. I think it's rather that if you are affluent, you are essentially insulated from need. You live in a relatively well-off neighborhood, your friends are better off, while conversely, if you are poor in America today, then every day you're surrounded by people who are even needier than you, and confronted by that need, you respond. And so, I think that if those who are well off see those needs and encounter them, then they respond.
To put it in context, does it help to have a direct connection or a familial connection? You talk about how in your own family there was directly a point here where, through the grace of someone else, your family's arc changed as well through your father, right?
That's exactly right. Often I think we're put off by the idea that what we can do is only going to be a drop in the bucket. And, in a sense, that's true. We're not going to solve problems individually. But I've become a believer in drops in the bucket because, as you say, because of my own family. My dad was a World War II refugee from Romania. He fled to Yugoslavia, then to France, and then a family in Portland, Oregon, sponsored his way to come to the U.S. And, obviously that didn't solve the global refugee problem. It didn't make a dent in the refugee problem. But it was transformative for my dad, and I wouldn't be here right now if that family in Portland hadn't been willing to put a drop in the bucket. That's how buckets get filled.
And you actually, in the book, talk about that scientifically, they looked at the brain waves. We get a payoff, even selfishly. You give and you help somebody out, there's a material impact on you, your health, and the immediate payback and the endorphins you get, right?
Exactly. And so my wife and co-author Cheryl and I actually participated in a study of this. We were put in this big brain scanner, and there are these pleasure centers of the brain, like the nucleus accumbens, that respond to the most primal kind of sensual pleasures. These are the parts of the brain that respond to eating good food, to sex, to flirtation. And they also respond, they light up when you give. So if you give to a cause you believe in, boom, you can see it on the brain scan.
Let me give a couple snapshots of hurdles that you're going to run into, which is, first off, people say, you know what, I don't know where my money's going. There's so many of these charities, I don't even know where to start, and even if I want to give, I'm not sure the money's going to go really to the right place. That was a legitimate concern, but there's a lot of metrics now that actually measure where every dollar goes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that a certain amount of wariness is absolutely warranted. One of the, I think, problems with the way we give is that we tend to give to those who ask, and those who are good at asking aren't necessarily those who are good at spending. In the back of A Path Appears, we list some great organizations that are doing transformative things. And, these days, especially with the internet, we can see often where that money is going. And obviously there is money that is misused, and we've seen that, but we also, we talk about seeing a woman who had been blind with trachoma in Mali. It's an incredibly painful way to go blind. A couple of her kids had died because she was unable to look after them because of her blindness. And then she got a $40 surgery, $40 through Helen Keller International. that restored her sight, enabled her to farm again, to look after her kids. And when you see what $40 can buy in that context, it's just incredibly uplifting.
What do you say, Nick, when people make one of two arguments? Hey, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps. Why can't these folks do the same? Or, hey, Nick, I'm struggling here to make my mortgage payments and pay the kids' tuition. I don't got a lot of money here to spread around as much as I'd like to help.
About 2/3 of Americans donate to charity each year. And if you ask the 1/3 who don't, why don't you? They say it's because I don't have resources, so my money is all tied up. But there's in fact no correlation between that 1/3 and at what income they have. Some poor people say that, and some wealthy people say that. And there are ways, even if one doesn't have money, there are ways one can volunteer. There are ways one can get involved in advocacy and use our voices to help others. And in terms of those who say, oh, I did it, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps, and those who are in trouble, that's their fault. I guess I'd go back to the empathy gap. People who are successful today, I don't doubt that they worked hard in school, obeyed the law, worked hard in their jobs. They probably also had a mom and dad who loved them, who talked to them, who maybe read them stories. And that's a huge advantage. We think of poverty in terms of metrics like income and wealth. Maybe the greatest metric of poverty is whether you have a children's book at home, whether you're ever read to, loved. And that's a pretty crucial thing.
I don't, as you say, subscribe to the guilting, and the book doesn't do it. If you feel, and I understand this at home, that sometimes this is too big and you don't know where to start, this gives you a roadmap. Again, the book, A Path Appears. Nicholas Kristof, who along with his wife, Cheryl Woodun, who co-authored this. It's really a great book, and as I said, it's a great starting point. You meet amazing people along the way. Thank you so much for a few minutes. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thanks a lot.
And when we come back, we will have a look at news making headlines in the Hudson Valley. That's when we return.